What's going on, y'all? It's Jay Smo Reviews here, back at it again with another video, man. Thank you guys for being patient with me while I was out of town, enjoying myself with my peoples, but we are back at it here again, and just wanted to cover a couple topics that went by in the weekend. Really just one topic. This should be a quicker video, and that is addressing the huge announcement that URL dropped with A-Ward's debut on Summer Madness. A-Ward versus TTop announced for SM15 in London, which of course, when I knew I wasn't going to be making videos this weekend, I wasn't going to be bringing my equipment. First day there, I see that this one drops. And, you know, we had Twerk versus Lux has been announced for the main event of this card. And I think every announcement so far for SM has come with pretty positive reception, right? And the Lux and Twerk battle obviously was huge. Rock and Fonz has probably been the quietest any of the announcements has been, but even that was like pretty loud, and people seem to have loved that matchup. But the second that this one came out, with A-Ward finally making his way to URL, this was the type of like earth-shattering reaction so far I've seen for the card that has people over the top hype. And I think it's a true culture-shifting announcement, just with the storyline that's went behind A-Ward finally making his way here. And now, he always said he either wanted pretty much a very large sum of money, the correct opponent, and the card itself to be like a high-level card that he's going to be debuting on. He always said he wanted two of those three things. And I think TTop is a more than respectable opponent. A-Ward versus TTop is one of the best matchups he could have over here. And then, of course, it's happening on SM. Can't speak to the pockets of it. I'm sure it makes sense for him on his side. But this is always what A-Ward wanted to debut on for URL. And if you go back some years, you had people telling him, at one point, he had to do a PG or a Crucible beforehand, which for many years kind of was the standard for URL. Only a few people have gotten the treatment of debuting on URL without kind of, you know, giving back, giving a shot, or debuting on a smaller card first. And then after that, it was, you know, he's got to battle Jackboy or Nun before he gets here around 2021. I remember people trying to make those kind of rivalries. Like, he has to battle one of the more respectable mid-tiers before just getting a top-tier battler. And now we're at a point that he's getting that Pat Stay treatment for so many years, we called it, where he's just debuting first battle right on the biggest series that URL has to offer. And people are loving the matchup, and rightfully so. I think when it comes to God tier plates, returns, and people who are already legends in the game debuting on URL, those are those like shock factor announcements where sometimes we can see them coming, but particularly with a return or a debut, those are the ones that get people super duper locked in because it's the unexpected getting announced. There is some amazing battles that get announced. Like, I love Rock versus Fonz, but it's not unexpected in a sense. It's kind of the natural progression for where Fonz is going, the leftover remaining elite talents that Tay-Rock can battle on the league. But this A-Ward, this has honestly gotten, I feel like, even a louder reception than the Lux and Twerk Lux versus Twerk battle got, which is absolutely insane. But as you could tell, I love the matchup, and I love it for a variety of reasons. You do have that debut factor. I think that this is the perfect opponent with T-Top. And there's still now going to be this polarizing conversation, even though it had died down, because I think everyone realizes, if you don't by now, I just don't think you're ever going to say it, but A-Ward is an elite, top tier, one of the best in the world level battle rappers. And there's still going to be some people, though, that want to see how does that transfer on the URL stage. I do think London is the perfect setting for him to debut as well. I think they're going to be super receptive out there. I've been saying I think the London crowd is just going to be receptive of all the battlers on this card, with how, you know, they've only gotten URL out there one other time on SM8, and the crowd was just so happy that they're giving so much respect to the artists. I think you've seen in recent events like K-Shine's return card where the crowd was really good, or even the Public Influence Battle League, which had JC versus A-Ward. When a crowd is bought into every word and just excited for battle rap, that adds to the battler's performance, that adds to the footage itself, and just makes it the fun vibe that we want from watching battles, and the people that are really engaged to cheer for bars. So, you know, there's some people that I saw saying, this would stop if A-Ward was to debut in the States. Maybe a crowd that doesn't want to hear him as much or still kind of holds against him that it took him so long to get to URL. But as I said, I think that we're so many years after the initial debates of that, where 2021 I felt like was like the hype of it. It's 4 years later, and he's only gotten better since then, made classics with some of our legends in huge situations as well. So I don't know if that would have been a huge problem anywhere in the States, but I know in London, he's going to get an over amount of love like most of those battlers are going to get. So it just all seems perfect for him. And as for his chances in the matchup itself, I'm very confident A Ward's going to win this battle versus T-Top. It is funny because I think T-Top's year, the most important battle he had was on Gnome, and he was incredible, elite, 3-0'd Miss Hustle. Outside of that, he hasn't given the most inspiring performances. I think this calls for another really good T-Top performance. A little bit worried on his side of things because he was a part of that SM8 card in London where he battled Iron Solomon, and he got a good but not great Iron Solomon and really got cleared out, whether you call it 2-1 or 3-0. I thought Iron really handled T-Top out there in that Summer Madness 8 battle. So a little bit of redemption for him maybe here. Obviously, he's returned to the UK a couple times since then. He was pretty good versus Gemini, who's huge out there. But I just think it all plays, the pressure's on A Ward, but people are coming to see what he does in this situation. And I think he's been in better form the last couple of years as T-Top as well. Well, granted, last year T-Top finished above him in the Champion of the Year rankings, but especially in 2025, I think A Ward has definitely been better. And if you look at the last 3 to 4 years, most of these years, A Ward's making the list and T-Top showing a little bit of inconsistency here and there. So does T-Top have the capabilities of winning? Absolutely. We're talking about possibly the best angler of all time, and someone that just showed in his Miss Hustle battle. Even if he has, he doesn't show up for maybe his side missions as much or just plates that don't overly motivate him, he can still reach that 10 out of 10 type of level. But I just think this announcement is all about A Ward, and he's shown up in his biggest moments throughout his career, and this is going to be another example of him doing that in a situation that I think overall is the best situation for him on a URL debut. So it's definitely a 10 out of 10 announcement. There's a reason everyone's so excited, and as we get closer towards more predictions, probably more promo for the card, things that T-Top and A Ward will say, I'll have more thoughts. But off rip, how could you not be excited for this? It's years in the making. And this might only be the beginning, because after this T-Top battle, I think that A Ward would be open to not, of course, battling more top tiers on URL, but also giving shots or battling those mid-tiers people wanted to see. So I think you could see a world where we get A Ward versus Hansel or Eunice later, especially the way that their profile is rising. A Ward versus Fonz. They could even double back. I know A Ward and Twerk was truly booked by TBL and is a TBL battle, but if they're not going to move forward with that, I could see a world where Twerk versus A Ward gets booked on URL. So there's a lot of options, and hopefully this debut goes well so we can continue to see what A Ward does and adds to his URL profile. And then from there, that was really the main topic. I'm obviously a few days late, but there's no way I couldn't give my opinion on such an important announcement. But outside of that, there was some battles over the weekend. Danny versus the Saga was a goodie. I haven't gotten to watch it yet. The only battle I watched in full from TBL's warm-up card for their face-offs was Jay Gray versus Rock Lee. Jay Gray smoked Rock Lee, embarrassingly, to be honest. Rock Lee had a terrible performance, but I saw J2 and Clone people liked as a battle. Only round I caught was the third. I thought it was a pretty close round. I see a lot of people giving it to J2 clear, but I see a lot of people having J2 beating Clone. A lot of people had Saga beating Danny in a good battle. It's kind of just what I've heard, not really what I've seen. And Flames versus Eon had a decent battle that they weren't clean in, was also what I saw. So a little bit of mid-tier action, maybe some people that we don't get to see as often, like a Flames, a Saga. But overall, just some cool transactions if you want to check that out. They might have taken the live stream down by now. We'll see when they upload those battles. And I also saw Calico and Danny had like a little mini face-off thing where maybe they're kind of selling the idea of battling Black Mafia Battle League later in the year. And I think things like this come up because Cal, out of all battle rappers, we always talk about battlers running out of matchups, right? And I always think it's overestimated. If you really have true creativity and you're watching battle to battle, there's matchups for all these guys out here. But Calico, I will say, in terms of matchups that are promoted or we know that are up next, obviously him and Rum Nitty is going to be humongous on Bulletproof. But then from there, you have matchups that maybe aren't like as talked about, like, the Calicoes versus Avs. I've even seen people throw out Calico versus A-Ward. I think that's a good battle, but it hasn't been overly talked about. So if Cal wants to battle again before the year's out, it's kind of up in the air who that next opponent would be after the Rum Nitty battle. And it's got me thinking, I am not mad at all about Calico versus Danny Myers. Especially the form that Danny's in. Granted, I just said I heard that he lost the Saga, but I heard it's a very good battle, and I also can't always go off of what I heard. So don't just hear me saying that and be like, well, Saga beat him. You got to watch it for yourself the way that I'm going to watch it for myself. But with Danny Myers having battled as many times as he had, some of the last top-tier matchups out there for him, one of them is Calico, and it's got me thinking I might do a Calico Book'em video, and I have not done that series in quite a bit of time, but I kind of want to go over what are the 5 next best matchups for Calico finishing out this year and going into next year. If you guys want to see that, please let me know in the comment section down below. But it just got me thinking, it really wasn't even like a big topic. It's just kind of like a tweet I saw in passing that they had like a mini, like, face-off stare-down picture while the face-offs were going on out there for TBL. So if you guys want to see a video going over what Calico's next best ops might be, let me know that, because in the next few videos I might do something like that, or after the Rum Nitty battle I might double back for that. I used to do so many series like the Golden Years, the Book'em videos. I want to get back to that a bit. I'm busy and those are a bit harder to edit, but it is something that I've been thinking about. And then the only other thing I saw, Serius Jones versus T-Rex are going at it. I don't really know where it started. I saw Jones making fun of Rex having the seizure on stage. I don't know if they have like real problems or if that's really just him fishing for a battle, because I know Jones has a habit of kind of saying like outlandish things sometimes to get that media attention. I saw Rex, had his response in an interview, and then Jones shot a diss track, a music video on Rex's block. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I only watched like the minute and a half kind of snippet he put out there. I don't know if the whole track's out. I didn't actually mind it. I thought Jones put together a pretty decent diss track, truth be told. So I guess they could be gearing up for a battle over there. I think Rex, what did he say? Rex had a classic Rexism. Even the trash can gets a steak. Kind of referring to Jones as trash, but even he could possibly end up getting a Rex battle, right? So I don't hate it. A little bit of old head action right there. I don't believe they battled before either. I don't know what card that would fit on. This is just kind of just things that I saw in passing this weekend. So I'm not entirely mad at that. I'm not overly invested either. But that's kind of just the transactions of the weekend, man. As you can hear, I'm still recovering from the trip, so I'm can barely speak over here. But yeah, that's it. A-Ward's debut I want to mainly talk about. A couple battles that happen, a couple matchups I see brewing, man. But that's my full thoughts here, and I really want to hear your guys' opinions, mainly on the A-Ward debut announcement for URL. How do you feel about it? How do you think the A-Ward versus TTop battle is going to go? And then if you want to, after the TTop battle, what are other matchups that you guys want to see for A-Ward on URL next? And how do you feel about the Calico video I'm thinking about putting out, some of these other matchups brewing, man? And we'll wait until some other topics come out throughout the week. But we are back active. I'm back here in Denver, and we're just going to do videos leading up into this weekend until Nexus, which should be my next recap video. Anything in between, we'll figure out the topics from there. But it's been J Smo Reviews again here, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'm going to catch you on the next one, man. Peace.